Okay, so this time.
o'clock, so we will get started. We have quite an agenda tonight. First of all, thank you everybody for coming. I know we have a lot of common accommodations. You're certainly welcome to leave if you're here for common accommodations after they're complete. But if you'd like to stay, it's a information-packed meeting tonight, so you're certainly welcome to stick around. With that, we will call this meeting of the regular school board in Independent District 204 to order. We do have a quorum. Everybody except Mark is not here tonight. He's out of town. If you would like to address the board, you're certainly welcome to do that. There are comment cards at the back. If you get them to Ms. Peterson, Dr. Thompson, or myself before the public input, we'll have you sit down here and share with us. With that, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is behind you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thanks, Angie. In a second?
Second.
Thanks, Patrick. Any discussion, anything that board members would like to see added or changed to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And we're on to comment accommodations tonight, and we have quite a few of them. And kicking him off tonight, I think, is Dr. Thompson. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to ask Nicole Kuliak to come down here. It's kind of going to start a new routine here of Above and Beyond. Nicole is our special ed director, and she has certainly gone above and beyond. We have 9 or 10 new students this year with all different kinds of disabilities that she's working with, plus one of her staff members is gone on maternity leave, and another one, the testing coordinator, is gone on maternity leave. We have a couple other situations where she's doing testing, she's doing IEP, she's trying to do her job, and she's doing a great job. And I've had to kick her out of the building a couple of times at 9 o'clock that she's still here. I know she's doing a lot of work on the weekends. She's doing a lot of work all the time. So I'd like to recognize Nicole for all her work and all her extra efforts above and beyond the call of duty.
No.
We gotta shift over this way.
Oh, yeah.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Good evening, my name is Trent Langham. I'm very proud to be the high school principal at Kasson-Mantorville, and it is my honor to present the Students of the Month for November. We have 3 of them with us tonight because our senior is going to be here and get his November award at the December meeting when it's going to be paired with an equally large accomplishment. So he's going to get double recognized in December, but the 3 that are here tonight are outstanding examples of great kids working hard in the classroom and achieving high levels of learning. Each month, our faculty collaborate and choose students that stand out for their character, for their efforts, and their scholarship. If they would come down one at a time, I'll present them with a Comet coin. 9th grade, Corbin Wolf. 10th grade, Eli Foley. junior, Kaylin Riedel.
Here we go. Everybody's in. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right, good evening. I'm Brock Trinan, Activities Director at Kasson-Mantorville, and I get the opportunity to give a few coins out as well. The first one is going to be given to, well, I'm going to give it to two people that the Minnesota Vikings put on an all-star football game. This game used to be played in the summer after almost all of the sports seasons were completed in June, and several years ago, after US Bank was built, US Bank Stadium was built, they decided to change it over and put it right the week after the season completed. So we not only have a player that's going to be represented at this football game to be able to play, we also have a coach. And so first, no one more deserving and of his hard work, not only throughout this season, but the tremendous seasons before this. And, you know, he comes from Laverne, Minnesota. Actually, he was the head coach there way back when some of us played, but still as spry as ever and has the troops going in the right direction all the time. Let's give a hand for Coach Joel Swanson. And I'll let him talk about our player that's going to be represented.
Well, the award in itself is really an indication of the whole program, the other coaches, so I got to give credit to them as much as myself in something like this. And we have the privilege of also one of our players got selected in Easton Seuss. Easton Seuss is going to be with the defensive line, and his position coach is going to be myself. So what a combination to do. But Easton's had a great career, been playing 3 years both ways, and was selected by the coaches around the area for this award. Tremendous accomplishment.
Can I give a speech, Easton? All right, the next, I have a couple awards for our girls soccer team. First, I'm going to have our first year head coach, Andy Abrams, come down. He'll help me hand out some awards. Just a couple things about Andy. He said his first year here, but a longtime soccer coach. I don't like to use the word stole, but we kind of stole him from Byron. So it was definitely our game. He did an outstanding job in his first season, getting the girls organized together, and I only look for just a great success in the future, building the program to how he wants it. So let's give a hand to Coach Abrams first. Okay, the first award is we had a girl selected to the all-state team for performance as a junior. And so this Junior forward, scored 28 goals, and how many assists did we come up with? 4? It's probably more than that. But 4 assists as well. She's just an electric player on the field. Whenever you come out to watch a game, she's just the one that you see her with the ball, and whew, she flies down the field and just has a super awesome knack for a left-handed scorer. And so super fun to watch. Let's give a hand to junior Delaney Ah. All right, another award that we have for girls soccer is we had 2 girls make it to the all-state academic team. They both served or had a grade point average of 4.0. They're involved in many other things besides just girls soccer. And so it's an awesome accomplishment. You see these girls coming from practice, going to work, getting up early for link crew, whatever it might be. And so it's a tremendous honor that they can buckle down and still maintain a 4.0 when they're taking such classes as, college level prep classes, quarter in and quarter out as well. And so one, unfortunately, didn't get to be on the field this year, but still served a very important role. And she's doing the same thing in girls basketball this year, helping out in any way she can. And that is Ella Matthias. She sustained an injury this summer playing soccer. Next one is another senior defenseman. They both were stalwarts in the defensive area. And this one, unfortunately, missed her entire junior season with a knee injury, but came back strong this year to lead the troops from the defensive side of the field, and just was a great voice of leadership with the girls throughout the year, and had an outstanding season. Charlotte Woodrum.
Everybody, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
All right, our next award goes to a cross-country runner. This runner is only a sophomore and has already claimed 2 section championships. He defended that this year at kind of a crazy race in Albert Lee. I was able to get down there and watch this one, and it began to rain during the first race, the boys JV, and the girls varsity race, and then the boys followed. And they had it on one of their golf courses, and there was some basically 180-degree turns and then some really other sharp ones with hills involved. And a couple of the other coaches that were kind of walking around watching and supporting their kids said, hey, go up to this curve up here and just keep an eye on them because it's going to get crazy once this rain keeps coming down. And they started going, and the first, they did, I think, 2.5 loops, was it? Something like that to get their full course in. And it was unbelievably crazy watching these kids going as fast as they possibly could, stopping on a dime and almost sliding down a hill and then coming back up. But David was fortunate enough to be far enough ahead where he didn't have to worry about too much of the mud, and everyone else was kind of in his dust. So sophomore David Opes, before you give him a big round of applause, come on down. He also went on and then placed 8th at the state cross-country meet, which is the highest honor that any Kasson-Mantorville Common has ever had in cross-country. So he was a record setter this year, and he's got 2 more seasons to go. And he's also grown into his leadership role this year, where we had several other males set personal performance records throughout the season as well. So let's give David a big round of applause. Coach Pittman had some family commitments tonight, or else he would have been here too.
Don't worry. You won't be.
One, two, three.
All right, one last very important Comet Coin recommendation. For those of us that were able to see the musical this past weekend or the weekend before, it was amazing. Yesterday was the first time I actually got to watch it the entire way through. The last several times it was either the beginning or the middle or the end twice. And so it was amazing, and it seemed to get better every time that I watched it. And think about this, the first weekend, they start out with a Thursday matinee, and then they do a Friday night show and a Saturday night show, and then a Sunday afternoon show. And so somehow throughout the mid-season or preparation of this, they all decided, let's do one more on Monday and try and invite everybody that possibly couldn't come. And so they developed a sensory-friendly show, which eliminated some of the lights and sounds of the regular show so that it would be totally inclusive to every audience member in the surrounding area. And they reached out to several different groups and community groups, and it was just a tremendous show. And the groups that were able to be involved were super grateful, and were not able to see a show before until this year. And so the amount of work, not only to put together that many shows in straight days, and several people out with COVID and different understudies coming in to perform on that Monday was no small work for sure. And then they had, of course, this last weekend, 3 more shows. So the orchestration of this, you can see all the people in here that are involved. It's a community gathering event that involves so many people doing certain roles at the right time, and it's awesome. And I don't know if I can put it into words of how grateful I am for our directors. Mel Ferris just puts it all together, and Cody and Liz and Andrew and Tony, they just, it's amazing on what they do and the time commitments that they put together. So first, I'm going to have Carlin show a little blurb about the sensory-friendly performance, and then I'll have Mel come down to say a few words and get this cast and crew down here.
Go and then. If you want to give them a little background on the photo or on the movie, I'll see if I can pull it up.
Actually, Terry Werman probably knows the best about this. And now you can come on down too. Let's give these two a round of applause.
My name is Terry Werman, and I've served Kasson-Mantorville School District for the last, well, this is my 34th year here. And I was really excited when I heard that Kasson-Mantorville Drama Department was offering a sensory-friendly performance to the Zoozicle. I have a grandson who has a developmental disability and gets easily overstimulated. His parents have been looking for an opportunity like this for some time, but were afraid to take their son to such an event for fear of how his behavior might impact the experience for everyone else there. So when this opportunity arose, I told them about it, and of course they leapt at the opportunity thinking, well, this is a pretty low stakes investment for us, though. If we have to leave, it's no big deal. But let me tell you, from the bottom of my heart, I've never been more proud to be part of the Kasson-Mantorville School District as I was that night. I get emotional thinking about it. My grandson had the most spectacular experience. He loves Cat in the Hat. And even afterwards, when the cast came out, and I know they were instructed to only come out if they had specific people there to see them. Well, the father of the person who played the Grinch, Brooklyn, her dad noticed that my grandson got real excited every time the Grinch came out. And so he came down and spoke to my son and said, would you like me to have the Grinch come out afterwards to meet your grandson? Couldn't have been any better of an experience. And I don't know, do you have the video up now? I could go on and on about how proud I am and how thrilled we were. I had more fun, almost more fun, watching my grandson enjoy this production as I did enjoy the production itself. And as they say, I could go on and on and on, but a picture says more than a couple of words. But it shows him toward the very end, and even at the intermission, he came back in and scoped out what seat he wanted to sit in, sat down, pointed to the stage and said, go! Because he was ready for the rest of the performance. So it was so amazing. And I'm so proud of every one of you that were involved in that and whoever came up with that brilliant idea. Thank you so much for that opportunity. Hopefully you can see the video to see his joy. If that isn't sheer joy, I don't know what is. And thank you again for presenting that wonderful performance.
Credit where credit is due. Jen Heeman, it was Jen who brought the idea to us and presented it last year. We had originally thought maybe we'll try to do it with Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is not a show that lends itself to being sensory friendly in any way, shape, or form because you cannot take out all of the big booms and bangs and lights. However, Seussical was perfect for it. So Jen, thank you again. That show, there she is. This was yet another one for the record books. We had 62 kids on stage, 15 kids in the crew, and I think another 15 in the orchestra. It was an absolute delight. We had days that were fabulous. We had days that we all thought we were going to go crazy. This is probably the biggest set we've made with a lot of really cool, fun special effects. And I'm just ridiculously proud of all of the work that the kids did. Megan Giese was not only assistant to the director, but also helped with a lot of the choreography and did a lot of the choreography. And it has been wonderful watching you guys grow over the since you were fifth graders. It has been wonderful. I'm going to cry, so. also a million thanks to all of the parents and the drama boosters for making all of it possible as well.
I'm trying to remember what she was in there last year. They all came Okay. Tall people in the back.
No. No, I just wanted this coin into mail.
That's good. Oh yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, the podium. And then I got ya. All right. Yeah, you are. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. No more, we're good. Mr. Steve, what are you doing?
Hey, what are you doing? Did you get one? Don't trust me?
Oh, I need my headphones.
There you go, Emma.
I take your advice. Belinda has comment one. I have never seen one of
You're
these.
certainly welcome to leave.
Now you got your own bed.
Otherwise, the board will be thrilling tonight. Abby and Sydney promise.
Stay out of trouble.
Not taken. You're going home with
Okay, so we will move on to 3.2 student school board rep reports. Abby and Sydney are here with us again tonight, so thank you ladies for showing up. And the floor is yours.
All right, so good evening, school board. The second quarter just started and the first few weeks have been really great so far, and I think all of us are very excited for Thanksgiving break this week.
First up, we got sports. So girls hockey started about 3 weeks ago. We had our home opener on Saturday against Blake. We beat them 6-0. So now we are 2-0 on the season, and we will play Winona away tomorrow. Boys hockey started last week. They scrimmaged Saturday in Blaine, and then their season opener is this Friday against Simley.
And for the other sports, girls basketball, we started last Monday and we held the jamboree at the high school this past Saturday, which is really great. And then our season opener is next Friday, December 1st at home against Austin. And then for boys basketball, they just started today and they have scrimmages coming up this weekend at Century as well as a season opener December 1st, but it's away.
And then wrestling also started today, and then they have an invitational on December 1st, and then gymnastics started last week. We are excited to see the school spirit carry from fall into winter events.
One of the biggest things that has happened at the high school over the past week was the annual food drive held by FCCLA. And as a school district, we brought in close to 5,000 food items to donate to the Common Pantry, Food for Friends, and our local food shelf, which was really amazing to see. And the senior class, we brought in the most food items, and we received donuts donated by Casey's today, which is really awesome. And this was all organized by FCCLA, and they put it together really well. And MHS also helped with collecting food during the morning.
Honor Society has the induction coming up on December 3rd. Many new juniors and seniors will be inducted into Honor Society then. And there were many qualified candidates, which made it hard to narrow them down, as it is a high honor to be a part of.
Our concert band has their first 9th through 12th band concert on December 5th at 7 p.m. And then as we just talked about, the Seussical, they had showings the past 2 weekends, which had really great turnouts. And we've heard really great things about the play throughout the whole school from teachers and students. And there was a full house for all the showings, so it was a really great turnout.
And then the Care and Cheer fundraiser was last week. It was held last Tuesday in the high school commons. Miss Mantorville, Kasson Ambassador, and then the MHS students and FCCLA students assisted in setting up the event and cleaning it up. And then also we helped showed the bidding items.
And that's pretty much all we have for this month. So thank you guys for having us and have a great Thanksgiving break.
Thank you, ladies. Any questions for them? I know people have something. Sir.
Did anything happen in your first games? Maybe a 3-point contest or goal by a defensive player or anything that you want to share?
So we haven't had our first basketball game yet, but we did have the jamboree over the past weekend and it went really well. And we did have a 3-point contest and I did win that. So it was pretty awesome.
And I did score my first point of the season against Blake on Saturday and had a few assists. So yes, I'm excited for the season.
You take a trip to War Road this year?
We are actually now, we're doing a holiday tournament up in the cities this year. So staying a little closer to home and then a little more time for family this year.
Very good. Well, so how did the first quarter end for you two?
Speaking for myself, it ended really well. I pretty much have all the same classes this quarter though, so it didn't really end, but yeah.
The same for me. I ended pretty well for my first quarter, and one class that changed is college algebra to stats.
So senioritis haven't set in or anything?
Oh no, it set in a while ago.
You mentioned the food drive. I don't remember how many, anybody know how many years that's been going? Maybe, I see Michelle's here. Maybe she knows. Any idea how many years that food drive has been going? It's a long time now.
Probably close to 15. It started as a Channel 1 food drive. Darcy and I started it probably 15 years ago. I don't know, Angie. It's been a while.
I know at least prior to 2015.
Thanks. Another question, the care and share items on the tree, do we still have items down there? You know?
I don't know for sure, but
We're taking down to hard parking and
Okay, I was gonna make a plug for it here, so Bob made it. If you, county seat and Hardware Hank, if you're looking for care and share items, I know that there's always a need in the area, so if you can, please help out, so. Anything else for the ladies before we let them go tonight?
I have one question. Did you get to use the shot clock this time in this thing?
We did, yeah. So they were just scrimmages, so all morning we didn't use it, but we had like 2 partial games in the afternoon where we did use it, and it went really well. I don't think it went off on us at all. So yeah, I think it's gonna be really good this year to use it.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Thanks for coming. Have a great evening and good luck. Yes. With that, we're on to 3.3, the high school PLC presentation. I'm not sure if Mr. Lyon was going to kick this off. Somebody else. Thank you.
I just don't know if that Comet Coin crowd knows what they're missing by leaving before the high school PLC presentation. And I actually mean that. So I, tonight, am gonna say less than I ever have, and that is simply because the story that the teacher leaders that are going to talk, the story that they have to share is more than I could ever really talk about. And I will say that I'm very proud of the hands-on leadership of this group. And I always remind them how hard of a role being a teacher leader is, because you have to really have conversations that move your colleagues, and while continuing to cultivate relationships and be a department mate, and sometimes push, sometimes pull, and be a sounding board as well. I rely on this team for all things instructional leadership and cultural leadership. I'm very proud of all of them tonight. I don't know, did we actually stand in our slide order? Probably not, that's fine. Okay, go ahead, Carlin. First slide you've seen before, that is our building goals, our mission statement that we reworked a little bit this year, and that is the one thing I will read, is that we are committed to creating an inclusive culture where students and staff feel connected and are engaged in learning for life, college, career, military. So that is what drives us all the time. We have very high academic goals as it relates to our MCA scores, trying to meet that 75% goal. And I'm gonna turn it over to, go ahead, Carla, just go through it really fast here. And there we go. That's just, yeah, go ahead, all the way, keep going, and next. English, we are in order so far.
I am Connie Anders. I am the high school PLC leader for the English department. It has been a great year. We have a new member in our department and has brought new energy, and we've had a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I was not able to be there the first couple of months. I was on family medical leave, but I am back, and we had a great meeting this last week, actually it was. And we really focused on where are we going with our state standards and how are we plugging those into our curriculum, and really fine tuning those. If you've ever had an opportunity to look at the English department standards, please do. They're very lengthy, and so it's really sometimes a little bit cumbersome, but we've worked really hard to find the meat of it and put those in. We've also talked about the new program that we're using, Adventum, for helping students succeed in the MCA, NWA's, ACT testing, and their scores. I unfortunately haven't even used the program yet, so I can't speak on it. But I know that my colleagues have, and have said that it's been working really well for them. And then the last thing we really are looking at is just making sure that we're keeping up. As you know, last year we had some great score increases in our testing, and just keeping that going in the right direction.
Hi, I'm Amory Waslick. I had a recent name change. I got married over MEA break. My husband's right over there. The Science PLC, we're working on aligning the core and elective classes to the new 2019 standards. Our focus this year and what we think is really important for life after high school is focusing on scientific literacy for our students. Scientific literacy is kind of the base knowledge and understanding of scientific concepts and processes that is required for things like personal decision-making, participation in civic and cultural affairs, economic productivity. There is a lot of information out there, and we believe that it's important for our students to know what information is reliable and what information is not. So we will focus on this by knowing, assessing, and teaching the standards. We have started to take a look at modeling different types of credible resources that they can look at for information. With the upperclassmen, we're taking a look at how data presented, the same data can be presented two very different ways depending on how someone would want to spin it. So they really have to understand how a graph works, how things like scale works, and the different resources that are used as, as quoting, that kind of stuff. With the younger students, taking a look at proper research techniques, how to not just use Google search for reliable resources, but also bringing in artificial intelligence. We know that that's out there and our kids use it, so we are making an effort to try to understand how we can teach them how to use it appropriately for their schoolwork. And we are going to kind of measure that by taking a look at some of these activities we've developed and giving them a survey at the end of our classes to see kind of where they are. So it's kind of a progression. 9 through 12, they start with the basics and then they start to get more into grown-up things as they're going to graduate and leave us and go be productive citizens.
Hi, my name is Eric Auerbach. I lead the high school math PLC. So we get a strand-by-strand benchmark report based off previous year's MCA. So we are taking that, digging through it. It gives us a plus, approximate, and negative for how we do on each strand. So we're focusing on the ones that are negative. What can we do to improve those? For example, Mr. Frankie has doubled to tripled the amount that he is using the technology piece, because that is something the last couple of years has been a minus. So we're looking at how can we fill in those deficits to improve our scores.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Auerbach, and I'm the PLC leader of the Social Studies Department. So two key things here. We are finally at the end of our transition to our new sequencing, which means we have two new electives offered this year, Advancement of Human Rights and World Religions. And so we have a lot of kids signed up for them. I've heard really good things from the Advancement of Human Rights. They haven't done World Religions yet, so I'm sure I will hear good things about that. We also finalized that juniors this year now take regular Human Geo or AP Parallel, so they're choosing one or the other versus it was a true elective in the years past, although our seniors are still on that track. So we're finally able to kind of be done with that sequencing. You can see our goal there is focused on literacy, tapping into that 75% with the MCA reading score, but through primary sources predominantly. So maps and graphs and geography and econ, a lot of primary documents in our history courses, and that sort of stuff. So we've been working to create graphic organizers and assessments then on literacy. So we're not just saying they read, but not actually seeing if they're comprehending. We're making sure that we are checking that, assessing it, and giving feedback to the students as well.
Those links are all clickable. Mrs. Auerbach wanted me to make sure you do that.
Hi, I'm Michelle Lindquist. I lead the Career and Technical Education PLC. We're kind of in a unique spot. We have 3 new teammates on our PLC, so we're embracing them and helping them through their learning curves. One of our big primary goals this year as a PLC is we are going to work with some industry partners to work on our Perkins approval for program approval and getting everything through the state every 5 years. That needs to happen. So one of the key components with the new Perkins 5 legislation is active advisory committees that are meeting twice a year. So that's what we're working on. Hello,
My name is Brooke Sancher, and I am the PLC leader for the STEAM team at the high school. That includes art, music, physical education, and Spanish. And like the CTE department, we have a few new members in our PLC as well. So it's kind of some getting them on board with us here. Also keeping our scope and sequence up to date and getting that moving forward to keep all of those things aligned with what we're trying to do curriculum wise. Our goal, we're sort of taking the focus about how our students engaging in what they wish at their high school level. So this is what we are kind of focused on. It supports the student goal that the high school has set for just really trying to use student voice to give us feedback on what they're looking for in their experience. If they would if at the end of the course they feel they've gained some really great skills, what they would continue to wish to see offered for them, whether it's through more coursework or through different activities and clubs. And so some action steps, I don't know, Carlin, can you move on to those? We've developed an end of term engagement and interest survey that we're giving to our students. Certainly each time that they're involved in a unit assessment, they're giving feedback to their educators on how they feel they did, both in self-reflection, also through teacher observation and conferencing, just checking in with kids, how they feel they're doing and what they'd like to see going forward. And I was fortunate enough to attend one of the concerts this fall where KMHS chamber singers sang. So this is just one example, and we had many examples earlier this evening of students really making the most of their high school experience. And we feel like our PLC does a really good job of preparing them for those opportunities.
Thanks. Sorry, I was yelling at basketball all day. My name is Nick Boschus. I'm the PLC lead for the 512 special education team. And we're a large group, and we have two different goals, simply because half of our groups are at the middle school and half of us are at the high school. However, they're very much tied together. And a lot of what we do in special education is helping our students who identify with disabilities learn to navigate the school system, but also navigate society. And a lot of that is through self-advocacy and understanding what struggles they may have to overcome. And so both of our goals are tied to that, with self-advocacy directly tied to their IEP goals, with all the differentiating, different disability areas that we work with. Some of those IEP goals are different. So we kind of made it broad in that sense, but we hope to see growth in their IEP goals based on their increased levels of self-advocacy. And that'll look different for every single student we work with. Along with that, we're working on also building bridges between our 8th grade and 9th grade transition for students with disabilities, just simply because we've seen some struggles with that coming from 8th grade to 9th grade. And so we're trying to maybe build more bridges to help them. And you see some of the things that we're doing up there to help them with that. In the high school, we have very targeted instruction for disability areas, and I do cognitive behavioral training with students, and we have a lot of social and emotional support as well. Go to the next one, because I'm on the next one too. I also lead the Student Support PLC at the high school, and this is a new group this year that we're really excited about. This is a combination of special education teachers, social workers, and school counselors, and also Sherry Thornbrook, who's one of our intervention teachers. And we're working together to help just increase our levels of academic and behavioral and social and emotional interventions at the high school by looking to potentially develop or propose an MTSS kind of model for the high school to help identify students who might be struggling in a variety of areas. And we're doing that. We're gathering information right now. We're looking to maybe talk about getting some training. We're looking at what the state of Minnesota recommends, looking at what our high school already has, and then putting all that information together. And hopefully by the end of the school year, we can propose something and see if we can implement some of it at that time.
That's our presentation, but I did want to not let an opportunity to introduce, I'm not sure how much the board has met our high school teaching and learning coordinator, Mr. Eric Schofield. He's new to our district this year, and he has done a tremendous job facilitating instructional leadership and as well as cultural, and assists with me with student behavior from time to time when it arises. And it's been fun to watch him really get, I call it his high school legs under him, and he's really really taken off and growing. Great asset to our team here. I know our teachers are relying on Eric a lot. So that is our glimpse into our professional learning community work. We are very grateful to be supported by the board with early releases and late delayed starts in order to do this important work, and we'd open it up for any questions.
Any questions tonight?
I almost said hearing none.
Yeah. So a lot of times I do ask questions. I don't tonight. I only have one thing, and that is, I think with the test scores from last year, I don't think we had an opportunity to thank you for all that work. I don't think we appropriately have done that yet. And with the PLC team here at the high school and all the work that you put in last year, just want on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for all that work and for the entire staff here. And so that was really my only thing. And so thank you very much. Okay. With that, we are on to 3.4, World's Best Workforce Presentation. Ms. Kaplan is here. So thanks for joining us, Ashley.
Hi, everyone. Okay, another year, November, right? Another World's Best Workforce Report. Same as last year. We'll go through our goals, which are very similar to last year. A couple changes I'll explain, and then I will let you kind of know what's coming next year. We'll see some changes in that with the READ Act. No longer will we be asking to make sure that students are at grade level for reading by third grade. It's going to be in every grade. They should be at grade level. So that's a new change coming up. Just a little context for you. This was passed in 2013, and we have 5 goal areas that we'll be taking a look at. So go ahead, Carly. Our first goal is always tied to readiness for kindergarten. So this was our community education team set these goals in their PLC last year. Something that was implemented new was the core assessment. So that was a big learning curve for our preschool staff. That's observational data collection as they're working with every learner and looking at competencies to see if our students are ready for kindergarten. So they set those areas that 75% of our students will achieve a level 3 or above. Rating is measured by Core Advantage by May. So that's their 3-day preschool, and the same thing for the 4 and 5-day school readiness. We met that goal, which is great, and a little bit different than last year. I was looking back to see kind of what the difference was. We also met that goal for kindergarten readiness last year. Last year it was based on letter recognition and the alphabet. This is a little bit more comprehensive. So I'm glad we're kind of making that change and not just looking at that one literacy piece. This encompasses also social emotional learning. So I think it's a little bit more holistic compared to last year. So proud of the work that was done. So thank you to that staff.
I just have a quick question. Will you just explain level 3? So it says like 4.46 average score.
Yeah.
What is that out of?
Out of 5.
Okay.
So we're shooting for, yeah. So again, it's new. We're gonna see as we move forward that like interrelated reliability piece, like moving forward, just some things to work out. But our learners did a really great job. And again, it was really comprehensive for our teachers to implement a lot of training and oftentimes. So they did a great job. Okay, 3rd graders at grade level. A little bit different from last year again. So last year we really looked at the focus on growth and students achieving high growth. Last year, for the first time, we set that 75% proficiency goal for all of our students across the district. And so that's what we used on this as well. We made this a multi-year goal because we really want to see in alignment with the READ Act coming up here, 100% of our students reading at grade level. And we're trying to do that by the year 2026. So with those trainings coming up through the READ Act that our teachers are going to be engaged in over the next few years, getting new tools, perhaps new curriculum if mandated by the state. We'll find that out in January, what's to come with that. So we landed at 60.4% of 3rd grade students, which is going to
keep us pushing forward. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing this year. We have some new curriculum. In fourth grade with Benchmark, we have things getting implemented in different places, so I'm hopeful that we'll continue to see those gains as more and more of our teachers are trained in the science of reading. It's complex. Literacy instruction is very complex, and our teachers are working really hard. They have great knowledge of what is the best instructional practices, but they also are very responsive to the students that are in front of them. So continuing to grow and move forward, I feel very hopeful that we're going to get our kids there really quickly. This is great improvement from last year when we're looking at our achievement gaps. This is actually flipped from last year. So last year we met in 2 areas out of the 6. This year, this past school year, we met in 4 of the areas as far as our subgroup population. So that is really great to see. We met in special ed as far as our students receiving special ed services, reading proficiency. That was a big growth. We want everything to always be incrementally increasing moving forward. And then all of our Hispanic students. I will say that this year, very late, we had a late enrollment of many students that need that English language learning piece. And so much so that we hired another teacher in that area. So just know that we have a lot of newcomers that came into that are just learning the language in the elementary school, also a little bit in the middle school as well. So that is an area that we need to continue to provide resources and training for people in, but I'm just grateful that we were able to add that hire to service that population of our students. We're definitely going to keep an eye on that to make sure that we are meeting the needs of those groups. And then finally, college and career readiness. Sorry, not finally, graduation is last, but college and career readiness is based on our Redefining Ready scorecards that we've been talking for about 2 years now. That cohort is over, but we're still looking at what's next for that. This is an increase definitely in career readiness. Last year, we were at about 60%. We bumped that up to 74% for the class of 2023, which is great. Pretty close. Last year, we were also at 60% of college readiness, and that one really looks at those ACT scores to compute that. So you will see that with the class of 2024, those juniors who took the ACT last year, those scores really rose as they did across the district in a lot of areas. So we feel good about being on track in that area as well. And then finally, graduation rate. We have a wonderful graduation rate here at Kasson-Mantorville Schools. Very proud of the work that our leadership and our teachers do to support students, the great programming, academic skills to really get our kids that program academic skills to get our kids ready and successful and on to the next thing. So graduation rate, the one area that we didn't meet in this year was special education graduation rate. Again, this is similar to last year. We're not meeting in one area, so we'll continue to dig into that data at the high school to see what our next steps are. So, I know I went quickly. There's a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'm trying to be mindful of time, but if you have questions, I'd be happy to take them now, or if you think of anything later, you could certainly send me an email, but this will look a little different next year for the first time with the REDAC, so stay tuned for that.
Questions for Ashley? We're a quiet group tonight.
Yeah, great.
So thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
You're right, we do have that. Yeah. So I see that we do have, Greg has joined us tonight. And so I'm wondering if we could possibly move up the audit report presentation, which is 3.9 on your agenda, to make sure we get Craig in and out of here. Okay, so do we have a motion to amend the agenda, moving 3.9 to 3.5 and subsequently sliding the remaining items down?
So moved.
Thanks, Amy. In a second.
Second.
Thanks, Angie. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, will do we have All in favor of the motion to amend the agenda, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And Craig, if you'd come down and join us, we will slide to the executive audit report. And move that up. Thank you for swinging in and chatting with us. Okay, Dr. Thompson, anything? Yeah, red button.
There we go.
Thank you.
Red for go.
And this is an annual report received, and I know collaboration with Bob to make sure that we get the numbers right. So
Yes.
thank you for bringing this executive report forward to the community.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for shuffling around the agenda. I hope I deserve special treatment right now. I appreciate it. What do we have for the slides loaded up or? All right. Yeah, there's charts and graphs. Probably the next one down. So
There we go.
we'll stop there. All right. So we'll hold there for just a minute. So I haven't met everybody. I'm Craig Copenhagen. I'm the principal on your audit. Kind of give you just a quick summary of results is we issued a clean opinion on the financial statements. So that just means we're comfortable that all the numbers are presented correctly in accordance with accounting principles. We had one finding on internal controls that you've seen before. So that is just basically on the thick booklet, we add about 80 pages worth of exciting reading to that, to the numbers that Bob produces for us. So Bob takes care of the numbers and we do all the New York Times bestseller composition. Federal compliance, no findings on that, so clean there again. This year we had one finding on Minnesota statutory compliance, so just a few older checks or unclaimed checks out there that have been issued to vendors for whatever reason, not cashed for a period of longer than 3 years, and that needs to get reported up to the state for its cheap property and things like that. So that's the only finding that we have. So statutory, pretty minor, right? All right. So then, as far as accounting standards, we had one change this year around software. So software subscriptions, that's new kind of presentation accounting that has to go with that. Two new things coming up in each of the next years, each of the next coming audits, 2 years worth. So changes keep coming. So they don't seem to let up and give us a break. So Bob, keep working hard. So kind of getting into numbers then, the first slide that I have up here is just the unrestricted fund balance in the general fund. And that ended the year right at 1.2, just under $1.2 million. And very stable with the previous year. This is kind of the area of fund balance. We talk a lot about fund balance because it's resources that carry forward to the future. And the unrestricted piece is the one that's kind of your safety blanket. So you have control over how to spend, when to spend, if to spend, what have you, or not to spend, right? So this one, you see kind of a little bit of a downward trend here, 3 years. So it kind of mirrors a little bit what's happening with your enrollment. And I just pointed out not to cause a panic. I don't want to do that, but if you compared this fund balance to your operating expenditures, right? Your operating expenses, it's about 5%. Your board policy asks for 10%. So you're about half, maybe not quite, right? So I just pointed out here, not to cause a panic, but it is an area where you'll have to be careful. So careful on spending, look at your budget. When we look at the enrollment trends, you know, you're down, I forget what the exact number is, it's about 100 students from 3-4 years ago, right? So 100 students, easy math, each student brings $7,000 of state aid. You're $750,000 off of the top line revenues with those 100 students. So that's why I want to point that out, just to, is one area where you want to be careful. So you don't want to see it go down any further. Obviously, you've been cautious, at least now the last 2 years, because that balance is holding steady. So it hasn't eroded, but you don't want it to erode either. You kind of like to see it turn and go back down a little bit. Okay. Next one I have is restricted fund balances. These are classroom or instruction related restrictions. So this is kind of where it gets a little bit frustrating in a way, because you see some areas fund balances are building, but they're restricted as to what you can do with it. Whereas we were just talking about the unrestricted, and that one's kind of low, or at least holding steady, but it's low. Whereas some of these others, you have fund balance, but you're kind of limited to what you can do with it. There's very specific uses. So included in here is what we call non-spendable. So like the CTE house, you know, the student built house, that's part of that $1 million. There's also a couple lots in there for future CTE houses. That's in there. So, you know, that's $150,000, $200,000 worth, you know, easily there. So that's in there. Otherwise, classroom type restrictions, you can use it for instruction. The other thing kind of included in here as well is student activity account balances. So that's been there since, I believe, 2020. Operating capital, this is another restricted area, or kind of restricted use. A little more flexible than some of the others, but for example, what you've been using this for is your technology, so like your one-to-one technology initiative and things like that. So this one is holding steady. Basically what it means is, you know, as the revenue comes in, you're putting it to use. So that's about $450,000 carrying forward. The next one is long-term facilities, and this is capital related, so not classroom related. It is in deficit. It's allowed to go in deficit. This one is tied to your 10-year facilities plan. So each fall, when you look at that, look at your plan, update it, update Minnesota Department of Ed as to your intentions, you know, it all kind of ties in with that. So here, this one went into deficit. You've had roof work, hail damage kind of repairs, so things like that happened here. What happens now is, you know, you have capital expenses is kind of follows the pattern. They're big all at once because it's, you know, projects are take a lot of money all at one time, so hence the deficit. And then going forward, the project's done, so maybe the expenses aren't going to continue to come in, but the revenue will gradually catch up. And you'll see it start to go back up, and, you know, probably 3 or 4 years down the road, you might be back at zero, back at scratch.
Quick question. Right now, is that for the next couple of years, will that slowly shrink, or will it stay about there?
I don't know. Do you know what the future next couple of years expenses look like?
We're projecting to get out in like maybe 2 years, we should be back in the black.
So, yeah, the expenses are not metered, the revenues are metered, so that's what happens there. So this one is food service. This is one of those restricted areas that's a little frustrating, because the only place this fund balance, 670,000 could be used basically is in food service and in the kitchen. So you're kind of limited to what you can do with it, or areas you can use it. So, you know, for example, you cannot transfer this to the general fund. You can't transfer it anywhere other than it has to stay in food service. So here, basically, we saw a bill. This is following a very familiar looking pattern now. It's like 2022, we saw food service fund balances rise pretty much with all the districts that we work with. And that's because of the federal funding programs that were in place starting in 21 and all of 22, where meals were basically free to all students. And that had higher reimbursement rates per meal served. So what we see is, across the board, we've seen a rise in fund balance in the food service area. So then Department of Ed wants you to put that to use. They want it to be at a maximum of 25% of expenditures. So now, rather than claw back on it or take it back, like all the districts have had to, give them a plan of how they're going to use it, how you're going to use it. So, but it has to stay in food service. Likewise, the next one is community service. So here, most of this is your early child program and community ed. Child care programs, those are expanding, those are going well. Gaining, use, communities participating in these. So this has been a bright spot. Unfortunately, again, that fund balance has to stay within community service. It has to be used there. So similar to food service, you can't transfer it out. You can't use it for anything other than community service. Next one I have is debt service fund balance. This is at $1 million. This is another one where basically it's restricted to just make payments on your bonds. That's what it's for. That's what it's, you have tax levy coming in here. The ups and downs, what you have to do every year is levy 5% over and above what you're scheduled to pay on your bond. So what happens then is, everyone in your district is, pretty responsible property owners, and they pay their taxes. So when they pay their taxes, you start to see a build slowly over time. And this is one where, the Department of Education will tap the brakes, I say, once in a while. So they won't let this build forever, but they will tap the brakes once in a while and hold back some of the levy going in, which is what you see in 2020 and 2022. The next slide is enrollment. So when we started with the fund balance, this is where I was getting 100 students compared to 2020, right? The decrease. So this is what's kind of causing some of the challenges on your top line revenues. So if you don't have those top line revenues coming in to the tune of $700,000, then either you need to raise it from some other means, like an operating referendum, or find a way to reduce expenses. So that's kind of where the budget challenge is coming from. It hasn't, you've added a few students back this year compared to last, so that's good. Hopefully that continues, but that's kind of your budget challenge. Sources for general fund revenues, $24.9 million money coming into the general fund. We spend a lot of time talking about general fund, honestly, because it's, that's where most of your instruction of students happens. This is your operating fund. It's where the magic happens, right? So what kind of happens here is your sources of funding largely is state driven, a little over 80%. So the state's kind of holding the purse strings a little bit on you in that regard. Property taxes are about a little over 9%. Federal is a little over 2.5. With kind of the COVID money is, pretty much, I think you're past it. Maybe a little bit in 24. So for the most part, the COVID money is, we're past COVID now. So the federal, you see that contract a little bit. You're probably large enough now that you're probably always going to need that federal compliance audit. But main point here is that most of your revenues have state shoestrings attached to them. Expense size wise, let's see, we've got general fund expenses, so that was 25, a little over 25 million. So net, you had a decrease in general fund of about 150,000 roughly. So with the expenses, what we're looking at on this slide is, what are we spending money on? Well, almost 75% of your 25 million is compensation, so salaries and benefits. Purchase services is about 13%. That includes summer education, so your special education, what you're contracting out with SED is part of that purchase services. So when you're, looking at your expenses, there's a human element to it because 75% of your expenses is people. So then looking at the same 25 million of expenses, kind of where is it being spent? So if we start at the bottom of the pie chart, the blue slice of the pie is regular classroom instruction. And almost half of your 25 million is going to regular classroom instruction. It's the largest line item on your budget, $12 million. And then if you work kind of clockwise, the next 4 slices of the pie are instruction related. So you have vocational, special education, 13% instructional support, pupil support. So on top of regular classroom instruction, makes up about 78%. So going into the classroom or to support your students. So think of it as 78 cents on the dollars. That's where it's going. Right? And the rest is buildings, maintenance, utilities, some capital projects. Administration is about 7%. So that's, from an administration standpoint, that's pretty thin. Honestly, because kind of a normal range is about 8% to up to 12% on administration. So just for perspective. All right. Now what we're going to shift to is just kind of looking at expenses and in total and some different areas and just dividing by your student enrollment. So like the first slide then here, this one is administration again. So kind of continuing on from the previous slide. But basically what this is showing is the dark shaded bars are a 5-year trend for Kasson-Mantorville public schools. And then the first kind of the blue teal shaded bar is a stat for all districts in the state that have an enrollment of 2,000 to 4,000 students. And then the far right bar is all districts in the state. So it kind of shows you how you compare, right? So the 7%, what we were showing on the previous slide in the pie chart, kind of translates here as well. So similar sized districts are spending almost $300 more per student on administration compared to Kasson.
I have a question, unique for our district. Is a TLC in our admin budget? Is that included in this? No. Okay, so this is just principal superintendent.
Okay. The next slide shows you regular instruction. So this was about 50% of your budget. Even then, a little bit, under state, comparable state averages, but nevertheless, half of your budget here is regular classroom instruction, again, about $12 million. Next one is special education. What this one shows you or kind of illustrates is the benefit of being part of Zumbro Education Co-op. So here you're able to share the cost of special education with all the other districts who are part of that. So that gives you a benefit of about $1,000 per student savings in that cost. So, okay. Next one is transportation. Oh, maybe that didn't make the book. Sorry.
It's probably in the final report.
Could be in the, PowerPoint.
I sent you the device one this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
So otherwise, I can just rattle off a couple stats here for you. So transportation, Kasson-Mantorville, you own your fleet, your bus fleet, right? Rather than contracting it out. So that equates to, it saves you some money because you're not, what it saves you is the not paying for someone else's, some other company's salaries and some other company's net income or bottom line, right? So, so for Kasson, your transportation costs on a per student basis is about $538 compared to a statewide average of about $817 per student. So that, that translates into some savings. Kind of also translates into, how you're kind of keeping your unrestricted fund balance that we were talking about, how it remained stable. It didn't deteriorate. This is kind of part of how you make it not deteriorate. Vocational instruction is very good at Kasson. So here, your vocational programs are about $300 per student, whereas other districts are spending about $180. So kind of, between the trades and, business and, what have you, kind of training the next generation of the workforce or getting them introduced a little bit. I think that's basically, I'll stop there. If there's any questions, discussion items, happy to do that.
Just have a clarifying question. So the vocational instruction then is not included in, it's separated out in a separate bucket from our regular classroom.
Classroom, correct, yep. So vocational is, let's see, that's about, you're spending about $700,000 there. So not huge, but it is separate.
Greg, when you're looking at that student enrollment from 2020 and that, is that something you're seeing across the state since COVID, or is that something, is there a general feel, or are we an outlier?
Well, you're not an outlier. The outliers are the ones that actually have enrollment going up, unfortunately. But yeah, that's something that we've seen in greater Minnesota is enrollment's slowly going down generally. I think during COVID, you saw, a lot of districts saw a dip with students maybe going to online or homeschooling or things like that. Some bounced back a little bit from the kind of the levels of COVID, but yeah, this is unfortunately a slow decline in enrollments, kind of a trend.
Thank you. Other questions board members have?
I guess to follow up Ken's question, are you seeing that other districts in greater Minnesota are having the same concerns with their general fund balance?
We are, some are having some serious concerns. There's some of that going on with some districts kind of slipping into statutory operating debt or getting very close to it. So when you hear of districts talking about the COVID cliff, I think it's had quite a bit of discussion anyway, the COVID cliff. So you had COVID money coming in, but that's kind of going away. So the cliff is, if you spent money on people, or if districts spent money on, use that money to spend on people, all of a sudden the funding source for those people is going away. Now what do we do with the people, right? That's the human element of the discussion.
I have a question. When I was reviewing this earlier, I found on a page there was a mention of a severance pay of $700,000. What would that be for?
Let's see. Remember that one. We had some, I think that was maybe an assignment. Does that sound right?
You know what page you're looking at?
No, I can't find it again.
Yeah, okay, so accrued for severance benefits of basically unused sick leave days accrued for severance benefits of 700,000. That's not an immediate liability, it's due payable. So it's not like you have to cut a check for it tomorrow, but it's just we have to track it for
Sure.
going
Okay.
forward for a future commitment.
And then one more question. When you were talking about restricted and unrestricted, so those have to stay in those pots. Is there any circumstance where those would move lanes?
Limited, not really, right? So both, with all the kind of the accounting that we have to audit, but the accounting that Bob lives every day, in the restricted buckets, there's, revenue sources are tracked through restricted codes, and the expenses are also tracked through the same restricted codes. So you can drill down on those and see, we know what the money is spent on. You can drill down to find the specificity.
They're restricted by the state.
Restricted by state statute. Yep.
So when they go up, does anything else go down? Or is that just additional, but just in that bucket?
It can be additional, but it'd be just in the bucket.
Okay.
Right. So it doesn't mean, so it isn't like, kind of like a teeter totter. So if one goes up, one goes down. That's not how it works.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great evening and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for your help. Tell your department heads, good job too. They're following the rules, near as we can tell, so they're doing a good job. All right.
Very good. Thank you.
That's pretty fine.
Okay, with that, we will move to 3.6, the resolution for the acceptance of gifts and grants.
Angie Richards introduced the following resolution to accept and move for its adoption. Resolution for acceptance of grants and gifts. Whereas Welka Women of St. John's has generously offered to donate $250 to the KMHS Comet Pantry for food and clothing supplies. Whereas Lance Peterson has generously offered to donate $100 to Comet Pantry for food and clothing supplies. Whereas Smith has generously offered to donate a deed childcare FY23 grant of $10,000 to KMCE. Whereas Cheryl and Philip Scholler has generously offered to donate $100 to the Little Comet sponsorship program at KMCE. Whereas Marty Buckwalter has generously offered to donate $100 worth of personal care products to KMHS Comet Pantry. Whereas First Presbyterian Church has generously offered to donate $150 worth of food and personal care products to KMHS Comet Pantry. And whereas St. John's Lutheran Church has generously offered to donate $413 to KMHS Comet Pantry.
Thank you for that motion. Angie, do we have a second? Thank you, Brandon. Any discussion on that resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution for acceptance of gifts, state aye. Opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. And we are on to 3.7 board committee reports. Land and facilities, anything? Okay. Personnel, anything for personnel? I know Mark's not here, so I don't know. They haven't met, so I'm assuming. Okay. And so we're on to finance. So I will share a little bit about finance in a statement that the negotiation team has. The school district's negotiation team, which includes 3 school board members, has engaged in good faith negotiation with the teachers union. The district's last offer included salary improvements, resulting in an average 2-year salary wage increase of 8.15% for teachers. Additionally, longevity pay and increased contribution towards health insurance benefits. The district's total package offer was an 8.86% increase, which is more than the 2021 to 2023 teachers contract settlement. Regrettably, the union rejected this offer and countered with a proposal on wage and insurance that resulted in a total package increase of 13.998%. Due to the significant disparity between the 2 positions, the district has communicated its intent to seek mediation at the Bureau of Mediation Services. The district's proposal reflects a genuine effort to fairly compensate teachers and provide valuable benefits. And the district is pursuing mediation in the hopes of finding reasonable middle ground that respects the interests of both parties. So just to let the board know that we have filed for mediation with the hopes of being able to bring the contract settlement to closure sooner. We also have comparison with the 2022-2023 MA lane comparisons for the Section 1 4A schools in both the MA and the BA lanes. We did this in step 1, step 5, step 10, and I don't know if we will be linking this to the district's website, this information. Carlin, I don't know if you have that, if you can bring that up, which would include the statement that I just read and these comparisons for 2022, 2023, and I can walk through those. So we compared these with the Section 1 4A schools. What you'll see is in the green is where CAM is in actually essentially column 2 there. And if it's green, it means that Kasson-Mantorville in that grid was higher, had a higher compensation than those comparable schools. And so in the MA lane, you'll see that we did very, very well comparable. Again, this is in steps 1, 5, and 10, and in the BA lane, there was only one cell in which we were not higher than the schools that we compared there. So I think that's where the negotiation team felt like we've been compensating comparably to other schools. And what you'll see down below there is the past contract total package settlements for the district for the last, since 2011. And our current offer again is 8.86. The average settlement over those 10 plus years has been 7.15. And so we thought it was important as a negotiation team to share some of this information. Again, what we received from the state legislature this year was 4 and 2. And that gets us to 6. We're at 8.86 here. So questions for the negotiation team or Kate, Brandon, any comments?
No, I was just going to clarify because it was helpful for me. The 4 and 2 is of the total revenue, and the 8.86 is of a smaller portion, the portion that we would spend on wages, so like the 75% that Greg just talked about.
So I think just as a team, we felt like the best way to close this gap here was to bring in some help and try and get this closed sooner and move on. And so that is our goal right there. So any questions from board members? We're open to those. Do not have the date yet.
What's the process for that?
So I don't know who mediates for this area anymore. It's changed, but they will reach out and come up with a common date that works, and then it'll be a day-long process, typically off-site, and hopefully during that day we can close that gap and resolve this. Move on. Dr. Thompson, any thoughts?
Just the fact that the 4% that we talked about was, I'm sorry, the 4% that we talked about, there's a lot of unfunded mandates that we need to work with. And so one of those is we partially funded like unemployment, and then also the READ Act, the money will not be there to cover all those requirements that they're having for us for the next 2 years or more. So that's just a concern that we have as far as the 4% that the state supposedly has given us.
So anything else before we move on? Okay. Again, we will get this information posted to the district's website, and Carlin will be working on that, or I think it's very close. It should be tonight or tomorrow morning. With that, we will move on to policy. Amy.
Yeah, we had quite the list, although we have seen bigger. I'm just gonna first kind of start off. I probably should have done this every policy meeting. Is one thing that the policy committee does is we go through every single policy and we ask what is working with the policy, what's missing from the policy, and what might be confusing. And so we address those questions as we go through it and what needs to change. Now, many of the policies that have the changes are directly from the state, and so we don't have a lot of ability to change some of the languages because it's all grounded in statute. I do want to bring your attention to, I'll start off with 606.5, the library materials. That is new, and we did have an opportunity to combine it with another policy, which it would be policy 606, and that's education material. But the committee felt that it's important that they stay separate because education material is your curriculum and items that are used that way, and the materials that you would find and utilize in the library are completely different, and those are additional resources for students to use. So we felt that it was important that it would be separated out so that they're both very clear on what they do. So we were in favor of keeping that separate, so we will ask you to do that, and I believe that might be a one read. Then policy 416, the drug, alcohol, and cannabis testing. The major changes that came were in 2C, and that has to do with some new language surrounding the new law that was passed where marijuana is legal. And so they gave us new language that would be more encompassing. Now we are putting this up for a one read and passing it, but please note that as changes are coming, they're being worked on right now, we will continue to bring that to our list and update it as necessary. So you'll probably see this one again before the 1 year mark. So that's just of note of that. And then one of the other policies that we spent some time on really going depth in is the fund balances. And that is 714. And so we wanted just some more clarification. And so we were looking to the finance committee to kind of help us understand that. So when you look at our fund balance and we set it at that 10%, how did we arrive at that when most districts around us are at 15% or higher? And so we're just a little bit curious about that. And we're curious about, we just thought it would be a good time to discuss kind of the action plan that comes along with that and what we are doing or how we are striving to hit that 10%. So I'm going to turn it over to the finance committee, Kent or Brandon, to kind of help us understand that a little bit better.
Sure, thank you. So I had a conversation with Dr. Thompson also on this. 10% goal that we strive for. First, wanted to make sure that's been there at least 15 years, it's been there prior to me being on the board. I think we've discussed it a number of years, or a number of times over the years of that language and what that means. It's always a difficult balance to balance where that fund balance and where that should be at. And there's just a lot of things that play into that. And I think you heard Craig talk a little bit about those with the enrollment and what's happening with enrollment in the last 3 years. So there's certainly things that are outside of our control. And talking about diesel prices and when you have, when you're running the budget as tightly as this board has asked Bob to run this, I think it's a balancing act, and if it's the will of the board to move that number, we certainly can move that number. It's always a tough discussion. It has been a tough discussion in previous years anyhow about the fund balance, especially when 75% of your funds go to people's lives, right? And so I think we look to provide our staff as high a salary, wages, and benefits as we can, along with balancing that fund balance. So always tough conversations to have, and I think if it's the will of the board to have the finance committee sit down and discuss if that's if there should be some changes there, that's certainly something the finance committee can look at what that percentage is. I think to micromanage how that happens is another thing, but to ask a change there certainly, and that's just my opinion. So I'll turn it over to Kate or Brandon.
Looking back and, since I've been on the board, since you've been on the board and stuff, it's always been, looking at our general fund and trying to maximize as much of our revenues as possible and putting it back in the classroom and, our greatest percentage as possible. And we've never actually had yes, we have a board goal and that's been here longer than many of us have been around. That's been at 10%, and we've always been hovering in the, 5-7% range. And it's just been staying there. but there's never been an actual, like, we need to put, another $300,000 in the savings account, at the end of this year. Like, that's never been the board's priority, and it's never been the board's goal. The board's goal has always been to maximize the funding that we have, and we've been able to stay flat essentially over time. And that 10% goal and everything else, would obviously be ideal for those emergency settings. We've had situations and stuff in the past where the state has not actually given us the funding that we need in order to make payroll, in order to pay bills, and some districts and everything else are caught in that period of time where they're having to do short-term borrowing in order to make up that. And so ideally, about a month or so. So, but that's the ideal, but the goal hasn't been to put more money in the savings account. The goal has been to maximize the funds that we have and give it to the people that work here, so.
No, I appreciate that. So as that is up for just a first read for tonight, so with that explanation in the back of your mind as you're going through why we have set it the way that we have set it, and just kind of all the things that go into that policy itself. So thank you, that was very helpful. Another policy where there was not a significant change, but just one to note, is in 533, the wellness. We did name our community education director along with the student wellness committee as those that are heading up our wellness. So that was a big change there. Just another policy, we did go ahead and link, and it is also, sorry, the 416. We went ahead and we linked the procedures in the policy that hadn't been done in the past, but that way that it's very clearly outlined and it's easy to get to and to see just for reference if you need it. So that was the other major change. Other than that, there was just minor statute references that were changed and things like that, so.
Thank you, Amy. Any questions for policy?
Just like to comment, there's a lot of legislative changes that happened. And so that's what happened. Those we don't have much choice with. We have to do what the state has mandated right now.
And those that are the one-time read are all due to the legislative policy that was handed down to us. And so again, just because they're a one read doesn't mean we're not going to be revisiting them in the near future.
I have a quick question just to follow up. Oh, have we ever met the 10,000 or the 10% goal for fund balance stuff?
If we did, it was probably maybe 10, 12 years ago. It was just been, like Franklin said, 5 to 10, 5 to 8 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then we'll move on. Student activities hasn't met anything. Okay, then Zed. So I did have an opportunity to attend the Zed meeting, very informative meeting. Couple things that came out of that. If you haven't seen the new 32-acre nature preserve that's going to go right across the street here, there is a site. It's Dodge County Environmental Learning Center. This is the name. I don't know, Amy, if you've heard about it or want to talk to it more. But okay, so there is a link out there. If you search Dodge County Environmental Learning Center, it's 32 acres right across the street, just behind Quick Trip. It will be going with trails and really the first time I had seen details about it. There will be a nature center there. I think it was roughly 20,000 square feet. And then they started work on it. The plan is to have it, the hope is to have it complete by the end of 2024. So they're moving along. And Zed is obviously very excited about having it right next door because they're excited to utilize it. Other than that, it was an opportunity first time really to be in the building with people other than a tour and get feedback from other member districts and from Patrick over at Zed, how much they appreciate the facility and the collaboration with Kasson-Mantorville on that facility. So that was really the bulk of the meeting. And at the end, I didn't realize, but at the end, the board chair from Hayfield just asked all the districts around the table how things are going in the district. And it was a common theme. Everybody with the exception of Byron is noticing a dip in enrollment and was lamenting it. Byron is a closed open enrollment again because they are full. I think that I think all boards are handling a little bit different, but everybody's trying to make sure they're right size and that they're fiscally being responsible with their assets. It's just interesting to hear that all the districts around us and Triton mentioned, well, some of our students are going to Kasson-Mantorville and they were like, well, they're going to you guys. So anyhow, it's good to make those connections again. Any questions anybody has about that?
The joint powers agreement is on our agenda for action tonight, I believe. And we have looked at it and we had approved it. And so there were no significant changes or anything like that. And so we will be asking, or they are asking that all of our home districts go ahead and approve that adoption. And we can move forward with that. That's been a long time and a lot of hours in the making. And I do want to point out that the superintendent's played a huge role in that. And we appreciate all the work that went into that as well.
Have all the other districts approved that already?
Do you know if any progress has been made on the facility rental? Is that?
Yes, that's actually something that will be moving forward in the near future, starting with the conference rooms and the gym space, which is going to be helping our district a lot.
And the discussion around that, the additional discussion around that was just that they're going to take it slow because they've never done this before. They've had the opportunity, so they just don't know what they're getting sort of into. So they'll roll it out. I don't think initially they're ready to rent over weekends yet. Just they don't know that they have the staff to do that.
The staff, yeah. So I'm guessing by next school year will be set.
Any other questions for Zed? Okay. Community education, anything, Richards? Okay. And then legislative, Dr. Thompson, I know Mark is not here. Anything for legislative? Okay. Then we're on to administrative board reports. Anything for the administrators tonight? Okay, quiet group because we've been here quite a while already. So thank you for that. So you're welcome, administrative team, you're welcome to attend or leave if you'd like. We have a few more things to get through, including Dr. Thompson's communication. Dr. Thompson.
All right, we'll start with the power of the positive things in chapter 5. We're lucky tonight that it's a regular short chapter in the fact, but those have some interesting things regarding to it. The positive teams transform and remove negativity. Chapter title and talks about first sentence there being positive team is not just about feeding the positive, it's also leading the negative. And that's kind of what the whole chapter is about. The fact that looking at the positive and leading the negative. On page 65 there. That was a little bit interesting because it talked about Jack Del Rio, once upon a time, and it talked about the energy bus, which is a book before this one, but how he used it as a head coach of the Jaguars. Talking here also about energy vampires. We can put energy vampires be allowed in our teams because they sabotage our teams. On page 67, it talks about the culture. One sentence I took out of it. You explain that one person can't make a team, one person can break a team. Talking about the team, and as we look at teams on this team or any other team that we're involved with in the work, I think we know that that's very true. On page 68 talks about transformation. I thought one in the middle there, the page there, I thought one interesting sentence was, don't be negative about negativity. Don't sit in the dark with them. Instead, turn on the light. And so that's an interesting concept. Is when you turn on the light for negative people so they can see. On page 69, one of the sentences says, this doesn't mean you don't care about the negative person, it means that you care about everyone else. Another important concept, I think, in this chapter, when we talk about feeding and weeding. I know it sounds like a Scott's commercial for lawn care or something, but I mean, that's kind of what it's all about, this one. Talked about on page 71, implementing a no complaining rule. We can just stick to it and do what we need to do and stay positive. On page 72, I thought that was interesting. The weed and feed concepts by Michael Phelps. And the fact is how he was an Olympic champion, and at the same time, he still needed to talk to his teammates and weed and feed those other teammates that he had. You know, he's one of the world's best swimmers, and yet he's still telling his teammates, hey, we need to weed and feed here if we want to be champions, and we want to win the Olympics. So I thought that was interesting as well. On page 73, the team, he says a team with talent can be good, but they must come together to be great. Again, talking about his teams that he was working with. On page 73, I did think it was important too. Talks about personal conflict. It says, let's be clear. Weeding the negative doesn't mean you eliminate disagreements. Positive teams are going to disagree. Great teams fight. If you fight, it doesn't mean you are a negative team. Conflict is necessary to have a strong team. And then further down on that page 74. Well, all positivity and no conflict means that no one is asking the difficult questions. No one is discussing important issues. I think we talked about that, asking the difficult questions. When I interviewed the job, I did say that I don't have the answers, but I will ask the difficult questions. I think that's what's important, that we can ask the difficult questions and look to them. Some of the difficult questions were asked tonight already. You know, they're not always easy, but are difficult questions that we need to ask and talk over as well. So that's some things that I had quickly, but what did you have?
I think this chapter was a little bit flat for me until I got to page 74 when it talks about conflict is necessary. And I think too that it's the connotation that comes along with the word conflict, and that it's always looked at as to be something bad, something to avoid, something that you don't want to talk about, when in fact it's something that should almost be celebrated, because without conflict and without asking those difficult questions, there's no solutions that come up. And there's, I think about my own work at the hospital with working with infectious disease. How could we make the space a safe space for kids to play and grow with tools that are going to have germs? And so we have this issue, but we work together, and now we're able to create a safe environment for our patients that meet all of their needs. And so I think here on the school board, by having some conflict and asking these tough questions and working together, the only thing that can come out of it, if we are truly trying to work together as a team, is growth and solutions to very difficult problems. So I really appreciated that aspect of the book.
I like your solution mindset, Amy. I gave 2 stars to that quote on page 1 that Dr. Thompson alluded to, that the no complaining rule says that you're not allowed to complain unless you have a solution to your complaint. And I think it's really easy for us in today's world to just complain and complain and complain without coming forward with solutions, right? And so I think to me that was just really powerful for not only my school board work, but for life at home with teenagers to my work overseeing a team as well. And so to me, that was the biggest thing I took out of this chapter.
I really like the no complaining rule. It was saying, if you're complaining, you're focusing on where you are instead of where you want to be. And it's very true. And, complaining causes the team to focus on everything except for doing and being your best. Like you're just kind of stuck in that rut. And really for the individual that is complaining or being negative and stuff, give the example, it's like throwing up. Well, after it's all done, after you're done complaining and going on a rant and everything else, you feel great, but everyone around you now feels sick. And what that does to the overall team, it becomes very, very toxic situation. But at the end of the day, the rule essentially is, help teams become problem solvers and not complainers, not blamers, not pointing the finger at, the negative side of things, but actually always approaching situations and stuff with, what we can figure this out. Some way, somehow, we're gonna find a solution to move forward.
I like the piece too, that touched on more personable traits and like relational quality within the group, and how just above where it says, don't sit in the dark with them, turn on the light, it says, no one really wants to be an energy vampire. They are likely negative for a reason. The first step should always be to listen with empathy, love, and try to understand. And then at the last page, it says, the problem is not the lack of fighting. The problem is the lack of connection and relationship among the team members. So I like how it touched on that. It's pretty dynamic, as teams are, but not just necessarily the topic of conversation, but deeper than that too.
You hit all my points already. I will reiterate, I think, what Kate just said, and I was reading that same part, had it. The first step, this is the first step in transformation. First step should always be to listen with empathy, love, and try to understand, and coach them and help them transform. Don't be negative about negativity, and then they went on to say, don't sit down in the dark, instead turn on the light. The other piece of that, and I want to go back to it because Dr. Thompson read it, but I'm going to read it over the microphone just because I don't know if you picked it up. It's a positive conflict. What was that conflict piece? And let's be clear, weeding the negative doesn't mean eliminating disagreement. Positive teams are going to disagree. Great teams fight. If you fight, it doesn't mean you're negative. It doesn't mean you're a negative team. Conflict is necessary to have a strong team. While I found that teams have more positive interaction than negative interaction, performance at a high level doesn't mean there should never be conflict. In fact, there needs to be some conflict. So, that's sort of what I took out of it. I just want to reiterate.
I get a little worried about and nervous about the word fight, but disagree was, I think, a better word in that respect. But I think it's when you're respectful and willing to listen. I think that's a big piece of quote unquote listening and conflict. So I think that's important. Anything else? Okay, well, I just want to reiterate that, we're using this with the admin team. We're a little bit ahead of the admin team. We're chapter 8 or 9. But we'll keep coming. And also I believe that the PLC teams are also reading this stakeholders. So we have some alignment, which I think is important throughout the district. I think that's very important. Anything else?
Thank you.
Then the next thing, I'll go relatively quickly, where I had the great pleasure to go to the Education Summit, the MREA, Minnesota Rural Education Association Education Summit, started last Sunday. I was able to go up there and have a real treat and be a part of the awards banquet. And the fact that Ashley went as well as Megan Melhouse and Kelly Schmidt were awarded the Innovation Award. And we're one of the only 2 schools in the state of Minnesota to get that. They got that award for their nature-based kindergarten. It was a fun ceremony at night, that night. And certainly Kelly gave a great speech as well. And do we get to play the video tonight?
With fingers crossed.
Okay. I just wanted to show a little bit about the MREA video that they took last year with their students.
One simple but brilliant trick to heat your home in 90 seconds and save thousands of dollars on your heating bill is
humans, not just children. Feeling like they have meaningful connections to what they learned and experienced throughout the day. And hopefully those meaningful connections will last through their lifetime.
Would have more of a brownish orange color, Grayson.
A robin.
A robin. What other color do robins have on their bodies, friends?
Brown.
This is the nature-based kindergarten program. They're learning their math skills, they're learning their art skills, they're learning their literacy skills, all by hands-on learning outside.
Myself and my coworker, Megan Melhouse, we take 2 classrooms worth of children and spend time outside with them as much as we can during the week. We take lessons outside that would normally be taught in the classroom, or sometimes we bring nature materials inside. And a lot of it is unstructured and playful.
We truly believe that kids need to be outside and that exploration and play are key to their learning, that it's not just the academics that kids need to know how to do.
The beauty of nature is that you don't really need any money to start a program like this. You can make do with whatever gear the kids have and whatever you have around you, and just be able to take the kids outside.
I love nature because there's always stuff that you can wonder. I mean, you never stop learning. My favorite thing on Wilderness Wednesdays is to go forth with sticks.
They feel a lot of joy and happiness on those Wilderness Wednesdays.
Their passion and engagement for school, I think, is really high because they love what we do here. Students sometimes don't even realize the learning that is happening when they are outside in nature. They are so engaged and focused in what they're doing. They are growing important skills that then transfer into the classroom. The resilience and the confidence that they're building in some of the things that they're doing outside become things that they can apply in the classroom to a hard math problem or to a literacy lesson that's a little bit tricky for them. They will feel like, I don't need to give up on this. I can do hard things because they've experienced that outside.
Just being outside, taking those deep breaths, moving away, listening, observing, all those things are really key to kids that do struggle with behaviors.
When they learn how to respect plants and animals, they're also applying that to how do I treat my classmates and how do I treat adults. So when we're respecting nature and living things, we're respecting all living things, and that includes us as human beings.
When they get home, I think a lot of the times when you ask kids, how was school? They're like, fine. What'd you learn? Nothing. That's kind of what you're hearing. And that's not what these kids are going home saying. They're talking about the geese and trees and the different seasons or patterns that we're seeing in nature.
To Megan and I, this award means inspiring others. I don't think there's any wrong way to nature-based learning. You can do this too and bring the power of nature and play to children in your schools.
Make school fun. I think sometimes we forget that they're little and that kids need to have fun at school to make them want to continue to be that lifelong learner.
That was very powerful in the fact that you have an audience of over 500 people that are listening and watching. And it came to be the next day then, we had a lot of sessions that we went, but they also had what they call a summit showcase. And the fact is that they set up and they did a nature-based showcase of their curriculum and the things that they did. And proud to say that they're the last ones to close up shop. There's a lot of people that had a lot of questions for them. One matter of fact, one gentleman came, he had got a grant, I think it was from the Blind Foundation for $150,000. So he was there for about 45 minutes trying to glean all different kinds of ideas from the stuff. So it was fun to see that as well, because they just kept talking. I mean, there's people there all the time, and both of them were going full bore the whole time from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night, and actually a little bit after 7 o'clock. As I said, they were the last table to take down, so that was kind of interesting as well. A couple of some of the sessions that I was able to go to, and it's kind of fun too. One was generative AI implications for education. Another one is data-driven tech planning for districts. Another one is cybersecurity is critical to academic success. And also AI education is shifting again. So there's some different, I know that they went to some other more teacher-related kind of sessions as well, but it was a fun time and it was interesting. I thought it was interesting too, because the other one that made the award was Fergus Falls, and they were into a nature-based kind of situation as well. So kind of mirrored us, only they were doing with 4th and 5th grade students. So it was good. So I could talk for an hour, but I know we've got a lot of stuff going today, but it was very good and very, very proud of them and all the things that they've done, and we'll bring back some more things to learn and implement into that program as well.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Anything for Dr. Thompson?
With the success of kindergarten, is there any conversation about scaling it to other grades throughout the elementary school?
I think they've talked a little bit, you might have to talk to Ashley more, but I think we've talked a little bit, maybe do some pre-kindergarten kind of thing.
So it's expanding to preschool with Mary Bell there, but also we're just taking a look at the data too. We had some really great success. And its first implementation is for our social emotional learning and those students in those classrooms with less behavior referrals in traditional classrooms. We just want to ensure that the academic piece is also aligned. So we are tracking, looking at data, and making some of those decisions.
I have a question, Ashley. Have you guys witnessed, I know it hasn't been very long, but because it's less structured, when they do move into a more structured classroom, have you noticed any behavior trends then about adapting to that new environment?
Sure, yeah, those little ones are busy kids, right? So it's just as they're moving into 1st grade and there's maybe a little bit more seat time, how are we making sure we're making that transition smooth for those kiddos who are used to being busy outside? So if we're just having those conversations right now, what does that look like? We know that kids need to be moving. We know there's a time for some structured time as well. There's literacy to be learning, there's math to be learning, right? And sometimes, Bridges is really interactive for our students, and how do we make sure that we are building in that moving time for kids. Our TLC and our literacy specialists, so Jessica and Jess, are doing a really good job of helping with that transition, I know, and meeting kind of the needs of our learners and our teachers as we're making that transition for the first time this year from nature-based kindergarten into a 1st grade classroom. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, we are on to public input, which is 4.0. And we do have one item. Ryan Christensen would like to chat with us. Come on, Ryan. On 7.
You can say that part.
Okay.
You guys addressed it already.
Okay. So I'm not sure what Ryan's going to chat with us about.
Hi again. So first, I came here last time and asked about a document that could be put online that was shared. I still don't see it on there. Is there a way that the document from July 31st board meeting can be? I asked that because I posted 2 pictures of that meeting on a Facebook page talking about finances and budget and spending money. And people emailed me about it saying we need more context on it. I can't provide more context on a document I can't be given. So if you're general public isn't quite sure what those data points are, it might behoove you to have that information online. Second thing, I totally empathize with your role in the contract negotiations. As I've said before, I'm on council in Kasson, and we work with our police union as well to do their contracts. The document that you showed today, do you still have that available up right now? Could you show that again with the points that Mr. Hartman showed? I just had a couple clarifying questions. I know you can't answer them, but they're questions to ponder. I think they're fair questions to ponder. It says step 10. That's because our salary scale stops at step 10, but the other school districts don't. So after year 10, you don't make any more unless we contract for more, correct, in this district? But Austin, for example, if you work there for 10 years, it looks like they're at 77,000 on their new contract for next year. I'm trying to find some of the schools that you mentioned. So I went on their websites just over the last 15 minutes. Byron's new contract, if they go to step 22, master's is $82,878. So within context, I've been here 14 years. I'm on step 7. So I'm not even near step 10. Those numbers aren't really matching what you're showing the general public, because step 10 here is the stopgap for us for pay. If they have 22 steps like in Albert Lee has 12, not 10. So when you look at Albert Lee's masters, they're 74,000. So at 2 years later in your contract, you're going to be making more than we do here. A couple more schools that I took pictures of. Actually, almost every one that I did either had longevity pay higher or salary scale higher. I couldn't get all of them up there because I couldn't see that far, and it wasn't online for all of us to share. So just one thing to think about when you share that data, maybe make sure that you have their final steps as well, because that's comparable to what someone could make after 20 years here. If there's 22 steps in Byron, what would a Kasson-Mantorville educator make at step 20?
Can I address that, please?
Yeah.
And the fact is, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that Kasson-Mantorville's teacher at step 10 makes as much or more than a Byron teacher does at step 20.
Byron.
And that's on this schedule, not on the new schedule, because obviously we're not to that point. So I think that Kasson-Mantorville teachers, if you look.
Byron, for their 2023, yeah, so this is their next contract, so they might have already settled.
Right.
But they have 22 steps. If it was step 10.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is that our step 10 is equal or greater than, on this schedule, than Byron's step 20. So you're gonna make more money here in Kasson in step 10 on your 10th year when you get the step. The longer you stay in the grid, the more money you're gonna make.
I'm on step 7, but I've been here 14 years. So my argument back is I'm not on step 10. I even took a step freeze, and I'm getting paid an equal pay as a 5th to 7th year teacher. So it's deceiving anyone that was hired prior to the contract negotiations where we cut the first 5 steps. Those aren't very accurate.
They're accurate. Maybe not for you, but people that are coming in. We can't help what happened before.
Oh, I know.
I'm just telling you, right now, a person on Kasson step 10 is equal or greater than is on this schedule than a person in 20 years in Byron. So if you want to compare, we can compare, but then, I understand what you're saying, but you have to understand what I'm saying.
I completely empathize and understand that, Dr. T. One thing I would suggest then is to show the lifespan. If someone worked 30 years in Kasson-Mantorville, we have some staff that worked 30 years. What would their lifetime payment of contract be versus someone in Byron who by step 22 is making $82,000? The total package, if someone worked 30 years.
The total package is interesting because they don't pay nearly as much on health, or haven't paid nearly as much in health insurance as you have gotten.
I took a pay cut of $400 last year a month because of insurance. So it's a touchy subject.
Okay. With that, we're on to consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thanks, Angie. In a second?
A second.
Thanks, Kate. Any discussion on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And action items, there's no old business. New business is the first reading of the new policy for the 6 606.5, the library materials.
And that's reading to adopt it,
I'm sorry?
reading to adopt.
Oh, first reading and adopt. So did we have a motion to approve the 606.5 library material?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Kate. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the 606.5 library materials, state aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And 6.2.2 is the first reading and revisions of the following policy. There will be no vote on those tonight. Thank you for going through those, Amy. And the first and only reading to approve the following policies is 6.2.3, the 413 harassment and violence, 416 drug, alcohol, and cannabis testing, 507 corporal punishment and prone restraint. Do we have a motion to approve 413 harassment and violence?
So moved.
Thank you, Patrick. And a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Amy. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of 413 harassment and violence policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And 416, the drug, alcohol, and cannabis testing. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Patrick. And a second? I'll make that second. Any discussion on that policy? Hearing none, all those in favor of the approval of policy 416, drug, alcohol, and cannabis testing, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And we're on to 507, corporal punishment and prone restraint. Do we have a motion to approve that policy?
So moved.
Thanks, Amy. In a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Patrick. Any discussion on that policy? Hearing none, all those in favor of 507, corporal punishment and prone restraint, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And we're on to 6.2.4, approve the construction tech house sale resolution that you have today. Do we have a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Brandon. And a second? Thanks, Kate. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the approval of the construction tech house sale resolution, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And 6.2.5, approve the ZED joint powers agreement. Do we have a motion to approve that? Thanks, Amy. And a second? Thanks, Kate. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of 6.2.5, the approval of ZED joint powers agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And 6.2.6, approve the world's best workforce plan that Ashley put together for us tonight. Thanks, Patrick. And a second. Thanks, Angie.
Brandon.
Brandon and Angie, thank you. Do we have any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the approval of the world's best workforce plan, say aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And on 6.2.7, recommended approval for the 24-25 Kasson-Mantorville school calendar. Do we have a motion to approve that calendar?
So moved.
Thanks, Angie. In a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Brandon. Any discussion on the 24-25 CAM school calendar year?
Has the middle school addressed the Eagle, or the, not the Eagle Brook, the Eagle Bluff, thank you, trip? At all? Authorities?
I'm not aware of that yet. I thought we were going tomorrow.
What I do know, it's a past practice, it's been brought up right at that orientation, that open house that they have, and then it's sent in the weekly communication. So there's a lot of communication to parents beforehand, so they're not waiting for us to make a change before, 2 weeks beforehand. It's well communicated and documented.
Josh is gonna bring the proposal sooner than he did this year, and I feel like it was maybe even as soon as July. But I'll follow up with him.
Once you
It
get
would
it,
just be helpful for it, especially at open house, and more that to be in there.
once you get a spot, you don't want to give it
No,
up, because
right.
you'll never get it
Right.
back.
You never get it back. Yeah, absolutely. And then understand that it's hard to reflect that in a full district-wide calendar for one particular grade.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the 24-25 KM school calendar, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, the motion carries. And we're on 6.2.8, recommend and approve the 25-26 KM school year calendar.
So moved.
Thanks, Angie, in a second. Thanks, Patrick. Any discussion on the 25-26 KM school calendar?
Just like to thank the calendar committee for bringing it early. I know there's a lot of families in southeast Minnesota that need to know these schedules far in advance, and so it's appreciated.
I'd like to thank the calendar committee too. However, Carlin is the one that did a lot of work on this ahead of time. So our meeting that we had several people there. There was a good 20 plus people there, but she had done a nice job with it. And so there was some discussion, but there wasn't a whole lot because we tried to look through it and peruse it very well. So I'd like to give credit to Carlin.
Thanks, Carlin.
Okay, we have that motion and second. All those in favor of approval of the 25-26 KM year school calendar, state aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And we're on to 6.2.9, approve the fiscal year 23 audit report that we shared tonight.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Thanks, Brandon.
Before we approve it, I just have a quick question on it.
Yeah.
The positions in the front were inaccurate. Is there any way they could correct those?
The what?
The positions, the listed positions for our board members? Yeah. They could correct it, and then we could. So how do we?
And which ones were different? What?
Just the
It
treasurer.
was Mark Torkelson as treasurer.
You can still make a motion to approve.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will again accept a motion to approve the fiscal year 24 audit report with the change to the treasurer in that report. Do I have that motion?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. In a second. Thanks, Brandon. Any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of fiscal year 23 audit report with that change, state aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Informational item 7.1, the special school board meeting is 3 p.m. Monday, November 27th, here in the forum room. 7.2 is special school board meeting is Monday, December 4th, early in December. Sure.
Comment on that one. We have two people that are going to be gone that particular meeting right now that we know. And
I can be there.
we're looking to see if there's enough stuff on that meeting to have the meeting.
I thought by the 27th, we could decide whether to keep it or drop it.
Okay, I can be there on the 4th. I present on the 11th.
So if there's not enough content for it, we certainly can move that one. So, and then the 7.3, the regular school board meeting and the truth and taxation is 6 p.m. Monday, December 18th, here in the community forum room. With that, do we have anything else to discuss before we adjourn tonight? Okay, do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thanks, Angie, in a second.
I'll second.
Thanks, Kate. Anything else before we adjourn the last time? Okay, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Mine? Yes, yeah, they are. They're wrong. So I spoke. Thanks, Ryan.
I'm Tanya's cousin. Nice to meet you. I don't think I've ever officially met you, but I've seen you many times. So, yeah, congratulations. Yeah, I saw pictures. Very pretty. Yeah, it's like a busy time of year. We're like a couple.
Just say the word and I will.
Yeah. I was thinking that it'd be fun after holiday season. This is time for band, and then weekend. Yeah, we're neighbors now. We live in Mantorville. So. Yeah, nice to meet you.
20 years. Makes considerably more than considerably more.
Not with the figures that we have.
Yeah, you have the wrong figures. I just looked them up and just compared.
Right now.
Right now. That's the one we're working for.
You can't tell me this one right there.
Yeah.
No, I know, I'm looking for it.
Exactly, but you can't compare a contract in the future to a contract now.
So we'll just stay there. Yeah, absolutely. If we accept the
Why do you suppose they have a 10, why do you suppose they have a 10 years? No, I mean, that's the
we should be having negotiations meetings. But there's no conversation.
Conversations, hours ago.
I went to her page, but it'll still work. And then I think for house sale, I have to notarize, and I brought that.
I got hung out for making posts. You all know that. But this is a public meeting, and you spun numbers on it. And you know you did. You're smarter than that. I know, so I know you did on purpose.
That's just not true.
It is true.
Not true.
Trying to grandstand here, bud?
Apples and apples.
No, I'm proving a point that you can't talk about this after a meeting. Shut. And every time I've left, you guys all stay for a while, and I don't know what happens, but you're not supposed to.
Bottom line is, that's what the numbers
I don't know.
are to start
I leave.
the year. Before they settle their contract, you can't use a settled contract versus an unsettled contract. You have to use the same. And that's what we use. Before these other districts settle their contract. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. It has to be a settled contract.
I have no idea.
I don't agree.
And see if there's a note with it or something.
Do you know, anyway, know what the?
I don't. Maybe we can put it in the teacher's lounge.
Yeah. There's something with it.
Thanks, Doug.
Well, that was really thoughtful. Whoever cracked that brain.